Hi guys, it's Mandy here coming to you from my bed because my office space has currently been commandeered by my partner for artistic reasons, and I can't work in there and I just want to be comfortable, so back in bed. So I wanted to talk to you guys about something relating to the whole what do you call this? The political agenda thing with films and TV series, and I think what sort of came to my mind was the fact that maybe writers should be questioning these producers and asking them, are you going to stick to the law of my writing, and do you intend to gender swap and race swap any of my characters or insert different races into this story just for the sake of political agendas? Obviously, not in so many terms, but like, if they ask that sort of situation, maybe before they sign any contracts giving them any rights, maybe it would make people more aware before they sell their work to these companies, that this is something that will happen to their work if they're not careful, and maybe they should be advised to have it written into their contract have it written into their contracts that there is to be no gender swapping and no race swapping and no shoehorning any races in when there are no other races, and you're not allowed to tamper with the law unless expressly given permission to by the writer or the estate or by someone who is a genuine expert on that particular writer's work, not someone who is being hired to work for them, but someone who is a genuine expert on the subject and who knew the writer, who knew what the writer's stances were, and all the rest of it. It's like, maybe this is something that should be written into a contract so that these companies and filmmakers can't just make shit up for the sake of agendas and political stances, because it's a bit ridiculous that a lot of these writers, I feel sad for the writers that they put so much time, effort, and energy into, mental energy into creating these amazing literary works, only for these filmmakers to turn up and completely mess it around. And I'm working on an adaptation of something at the moment, so I do understand that there has to be some sort of artistic liberty taken to a certain degree because it's not the same medium. I do understand that, but there's a difference between making slight changes for the sake of adaptation and completely ignoring the law that a writer has created for the sake of inserting your own agendas into it. I just think it's a shame, and I think we really need to ask the questions, and maybe we should make it should be made, not we, but people who are working on books who hope that they will one day be adapted should maybe be reminded that you need to have a contract that states that if anyone is going to adapt your work, you should say in the contract that you're not allowed to, that they are not allowed to gender swap, they're not allowed to race swap, they're not allowed to insert races without express permission of the author, and they're not allowed to change the law. Like Tolkien said, he was quite happy to have people expand on his lore, but he did not want people to change his lore. Because, I mean, he spent years creating Lord of the Rings. He spent years creating the backstory. He spent years creating the worlds, the language, the characters, the history of these people, only for Amazon to turn around and just be like, whatever, we can do whatever we want. We don't care. And they hire an expert on Tolkien and his works, only to then fire him just because he fought for Tolkien's lore to be kept true to what Tolkien wanted. And for anyone who's gone and watched those video appendices with Peter Jackson when they were talking about Tolkien and his history of making it, and when they were making the Lord of the Rings films, it says numerous times that Tolkien is very protective of his work. He did not want anyone to alter it or to interpret it incorrectly. He didn't want people to put their own agendas into it. He felt offended when people suggested something that wasn't actually in the text. He was very, very precise with how he wanted his stories to be seen and read and interpreted. He didn't like people adjusting it because, I mean, when you spend that much time, energy, and effort creating something like that, you become very protective of it, especially because you know what your intentions were. And I think it's an insult to the writers, for filmmakers and these TV show makers to just ignore what the writers want in their visual adaptations. If you're going to ignore the writers to create your own fan fiction, as it were, what's the point of taking the story in the first place? Why did you even bother to buy the rights to it if you're going to just change it? You might as well just make up your own stories. The only reason they want the rights to these things is because they have an established fan base. That's the only thing they care about, is the fact that these things have an established fan base, and they want to leech whatever they can out of that fan base, but they don't actually care about making the work as authentic as possible. I give full credit to Peter Jackson for caring, completely and utterly caring about Tolkien and his intentions and his work. I absolutely praise him for that, because he seems to be, as far as I know, the only filmmaker that I know of that has respected the writer's lore and intentions and ambitions for his work. And I totally respect him for that, and I admire him for that. Of course, he did sort of drop the ball a little bit on The Hobbit, but I think that wasn't really his fault. He wasn't very interested in making The Hobbit in the first place. He didn't really want to make The Hobbit. But that was, again, I think that was just studio intervention, forcing him to do something he didn't want to do, and somebody else probably demanded that he make 3 films when he didn't even want to make 3 films. And I don't blame him for that, because it's not something he had power in, and I don't think it's fair to blame him entirely for that. I think whoever was in charge of those decisions should be completely banished from the world of film, because they really don't care about respecting people's writings and respecting what the writers wanted. And even when your own director doesn't feel that what you're doing is right, you should just take a moment and say, hang on, are we doing this for ourselves, or are we doing this because we actually have a passion to tell this story as it was told in the book by the writers, because why else did the writers spend so much time creating these things? So, I mean, I'm just taking this from the point of view of someone who maybe one day will want to write a story, a fantasy story. It's one of my things. I would love to write a fantasy story. I would never be able to create anything as amazing and in depth as Lord of the Rings, but if I were to just be able to create something a fraction of with the fraction of the wealth that the lore of Tolkien created, I would be really happy. But I would simply, if anyone were to turn around and say, I would like to make an adaptation of your work, I would definitely have it written into a contract that they're not allowed to gender swap anyone, they're not allowed to race swap anyone, and they're not allowed to shoehorn in anything that is not in the original lore unless I have approved it first. I just think that's something writers need to be very careful of, especially, you know, and the other thing, I think writers need to be more savvy about selling the rights to their work before their work's even finished. You know, like, what's her name? Harry Potter writer? I completely forget her name now. J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling, she sold the rights to Harry Potter before she'd even finished the books. And I think, in a way, she did herself a disservice by doing that, because of the fact that it meant that she was on a time schedule, that she had to get these books out at a certain time so that the filmmakers could make their films, rather than saying, no, I'm going to wait until I have finished writing these books and then I will sell you the rights. Because then, and only then, you will be able to tell what is a crucial character, or who is a crucial character, what is a crucial element, what should be, what can be changed and what cannot be changed. It's something I think that writers need to be very careful of when selling the rights to their work. They need to be more aware of the fact that they should hold on to the rights of their work until their work is complete. That way, the filmmakers can't just go, oh, we haven't got the last book, or they haven't got the last chapter or something, so we'll just make it up so that we can get this episode out, or this film out, or something. And you don't end up putting pressure on the writer to finish something before it's ready to be put out. Because they end up rushing something and it can make it nowhere near as good. So that's just how I feel about this whole writing and filmmaking thing. Like I said, I totally understand to a certain degree that there has to be some changes made, but I think it should be done tastefully, with respect to the lore of the writing, and with the writer's express permission and approval. And if it's a matter of the estate selling the work, I think the estate themselves should be taking on that responsibility as well, saying, this is what the writer created, and we are going to be responsible for making sure that you do not mess it up for the sake of political agendas. So you're not allowed to just change it however you want, and it's going to be written into a contract. So that's just how I feel like we should demand some changes in that case. I don't know, what do you guys think about that? Let me know in the comments below, and leave a like if you agree with this. So I'll catch you in the next video, guys. Bye.